"You think this is your park? Get back, get out now," the off-duty voice cracked across the summer court as a man vaulted the fence, and the whole place went silent when Trent saw the badge and Noah whispered Uncle Dre. On a blue-gold Saturday that smelled like cut grass and orange ice pops, 13-year-old Noah Adeyemi sat cross-legged under the oak by the basketball court and sketched the park. He wasn't drawing people this time. People got complicated, and lines never behaved when feelings did, but he drew the fence. The waist-high black bars curled along the edge like a staff line on a song, and the whole park was music if you held your breath and listened. Thump of sneakers, squeak of rims, giggles from the splash pad, a dog's metal tags chiming. Noah's pencil floated. He shaded the fence darker, then softened it, then darker again. Today the fence felt like a decision. "Hey," the voice came from over his shoulder, tight and derisive. "What's your drawing, Picasso?" Noah didn't turn. He kept the line moving, the way his art teacher said always move the line. A white tennis shoe scuffed the paper. Noah blinked up. Trent older, 16 maybe, a shock of pale hair like a dare, a grin that didn't reach his eyes looked down at him. Two other boys hung back, phones in hand, orbiting Trent like moons. "It's a fence," Noah said, "and the court. Perspective. Perspective." Trent smiled wider. "Here's perspective. This is our court. Camp's over there." He jerked his chin at the playground homework club under the tree. "You want to draw?" "Draw over there." Noah looked back at his page. "I'm not in the way." "Not yet." Trent nudged Noah's sketchbook with the toe of his shoe, pushing it an inch across the grass. "Move." Noah's chest tightened. He thought of what Mom always said, "Don't escalate." Of what his aunt, Maya, said, "Don't fold yourself smaller either." And of his uncle, Captain Andre Coleman, who spoke like granite, "You're allowed to be here. The law is the law for you, too." Noah lifted his pencil. "I'm staying." Trent's grin flattened. "Say that again." From the court, a whistle someone bought at the dollar store, a chorus of groans and laughter. The dog tags chimed again, nervous this time, as if even the dog could smell the air changing. "I'm staying," Noah repeated, but softer. His shoulders wanted to curl. He kept them square. Trent glanced at his moons. "Record this." To Noah, "You think you can tell me what to do in my park?" Noah swallowed. "It's not your—" The shove came fast, a heel of a hand to his shoulder that popped him backward. Noah splayed a palm to catch himself. A stick jabbed his skin. His sketchbook flapped open, the fence on the page bisected by crushed grass. "Stop," Noah said, heat flaring behind his eyes. "Don't touch my—" Or what? Trent stepped into the space, shadow swallowing Noah's knees. He snatched the sketchbook, flipped it, sneered. "This sucks." "Give it back." Noah stood, faster than he felt, knees shaky. He was small next to Trent. Everyone said he'd shoot up one summer, but it wasn't this one, and he felt every inch he didn't have. Phones were out now, at least 3 little rectangular judgments. A couple of grown-ups glanced, then looked away, brittle as glass. The basketball thumped, stopped, and a player shouted, "Yo, cut it out," while not moving an inch closer. "Give it," Noah said again. He reached for the book. Trent yanked it higher, teasing, and then, with a flick soft as a shrug, he tossed it toward the puddled edge of the splash pad. The sketchbook landed in a fan of dirty water. Graphite rivers ran. Something in Noah snapped with a sound he couldn't hear but could feel like paper tearing in his chest. He stepped at Trent, not thinking, hands up to grab the shirt that said Ridgeview Baseball. His fingers snagged cotton. Trent's eyes went bright and delighted. "Oh," Trent said, feigning surprise. "So you want to fight?" The first punch didn't land cleanly. Trent threw it sidearm like a kid winging a rock, and it glanced off Noah's jaw, an ear, in a hot, shocking slap. The second was better. It found Noah's cheekbone and turned the park on its axis. The oak tree lurched. The fence hunched closer. Noah stumbled and tasted metal. He saw his sketchbook leaking. He saw one of the moons zoom in, recording, murmuring, "Dude, chill, with a smile that said don't." He saw a sliver of sky between Trent's elbow and ribs. And beyond the fence, in the sidewalk wash of sunlight, a figure slowed. A man mid-jog, sweat darkening his gray T-shirt, stopped, turned, and looked. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dark-skinned, with a runner's looseness that coiled when his gaze sharpened. He put a hand on the fence, hesitated half a heartbeat, rules, always rules, and then he vaulted. One hand, 1 foot, almost casual. His body remembered this fence. He hit the grass in a thud that made the dog stop jingling. "Hey!" he barked, voice no longer casual. It was a command Noah knew from every family barbecue and every bedtime story. The voice that stopped trouble before it started, and sometimes, like now after, hands off him. Now. Trent turned, breath flaring, eyes greedily, measuring the new gamesome guy. "What, a coach?" And said, "Mind your—" The man took 2 strides and was there, arm between Trent and Noah, stance square and balanced. I said, "Hands off." Trent's chin jutted. "You can't tell me." The man stared, didn't blink. "Yes, I can." Phones pivoted to him. The court quieted further. Somewhere a toddler squealed because a sprinkler hit his toes, unaware the moment had split. "Who are you?" Trent demanded, voice cracking. He shoved again, testing. The man's hand intercepted Trent's wrist with a speed that was terrifying, not because it was violent, but because it was practiced. He twisted just enough to unroot the shove, then held Trent's eyes. "You don't want this path?" And then Noah heard the name he knew would drop like a weight, Captain Coleman. It came from the court, Mr. Diaz, the math teacher who played pickup on Saturdays, and it detonated inside Trent's brain before it got to his ears. Captain Coleman. Police. "Back off, son," Captain Andre Coleman said, calm and iron. Something like fear flickered through Trent's face and then calcified into bravado. "You can't. You're not even. Where's your badge?" "I'm off duty." Andre's voice never raised, but it filled the park. "I don't need a badge to keep a kid from being hurt." "Kid?" Trent spat, gesturing at Noah with a fury too large for his age. "He grabbed me first. Because you dumped his work," someone said. "Because you shoved him," someone else added, braver now. The phones recorded. The fence watched. Trent jerked his wrist and wrenched free. He took a wild swing at Andre this time, and for a second Noah saw 2 futures. One where Andre blocked and de-escalated and this stayed small, and one where the swing landed and everything that followed would be years long and lead heavy. The swing didn't land. Andre stepped in, body blurring, and in the space of a blink Trent found his shoulder pinned, his balance gone, and the grass at his hip. No strike, no slam, just the physics of a man who knew bodies and gravity. Andre knelt with him, one knee planted, one hand up open to the camera, see? And said, "Low, breathe, stop, it's done." Trent panted. Noah, shaking, touched his cheekbone and felt a swell. The world rushed back, the dog, the squeak of a sneaker, the mist from the splash pad. Andre looked up at Noah then, and his eyes changed, softened, broken away Noah had only ever seen in family. "You okay?" Andre asked, but there was more in the question. "Nephew, are you okay?" Noah swallowed and nodded, and the word tumbled out of him before he could think to keep it in. "Uncle Dre." A ripple went through the watching circle. Phones caught it. Trent's face crumpled into something more dangerous than anger. Shame. Andre's jaw ticked. "Up," he told Trent gently, and when Trent stood, the circle parted for sirens coming from far but getting closer. Someone had called them. Of course they had. "Everyone calm," Andre said to the air. "Everyone tell the truth." The sirens wailed nearer. Noah's sketchbook bled at his feet. The fence on the page vanished into gray. Officers found them standing in a tableau that made sense only if you'd watched it build. A teenage boy with a bruise blooming purple like a storm. Another boy, older, breathing hard, shame and pride wrestling behind his eyes. And between them a man in a sweat-stained shirt, hands open at his sides in a stance only cops recognize as the opposite of threat. "Hands where we can see them," one of the arriving officers called reflexively, and Andre lifted his palms higher while keeping his shoulders easy. Nothing in his face said I outrank you. Everything in his body said I know how this goes. Captain? The second officer blurted, recognition cracking the script. Officer Liao, 3 years into the job, had seen Andre in briefings at commendation ceremonies, where speeches dragged and coffee went cold. Andre didn't nod. On duty, names anchored you. Off duty, they complicated things. We've got a juvenile assault, he said evenly. Multiple witnesses, video. The word video reframed every gaze. It traveled down the line of phones like a current. Chests expanded, as if everyone realized at once that their recordings were either shields or swords. A woman stepped forward, tight bun, TA badge clipped from a meeting she'd never taken off Ms. Rourke. I saw that boy, she pointed at Trent. Push him, twice, and he threw the drawing. He was taunting him. Trent's mouth opened. He grabbed me first. After you shoved him? Ms. Rourke snapped, pulse visible at her throat. Names, Officer, Liao said, pen poised, but eyes on Andre's hands. We'll separate everyone. Andre exhaled. Separate. Good. Cooling space, fewer sparks. He gestured lightly. My nephew first, he said, owning the word now because pretending didn't change the cameras. He needs ice. Trent barked a laugh that hurt to listen to. Of course he's your nephew. Andre finally turned fully to Trent and met his stare without accusation, only truth. And you are somebody's son. Trent flinched as if struck by that. He pulled his gaze from Andre and found a different target. Mom, he called toward the street, voice cracking with relief and calculation. A white SUV pulled up too fast, chirping at the curb like an apology. Catherine Walker fitness instructor arms, sunglasses that suggested she wanted to be the glare she projected, strode into the scene. Trent? Baby. What happened? She looked at Noah, then at Andre, and her mouth made a prim line that said, I have already decided. Captain Coleman, Officer Liao said carefully, we'll need your statement. There may be an internal report about off-duty intervention. Of course, Andre said. He'd written those reports as a lieutenant red-penning verbs to sand off heat. He glanced at Noah. Can you sit with Ms. Maya? His voice tilted toward question because family dignity was a language. He wouldn't order his nephew like a suspect. Noah nodded. Aunt Maya was already pushing through the cluster, scrubs wrinkled from an urgent care shift, eyes wide and wet. She cupped Noah's face with gentle hands, and then held them hovering, as if even touch could bruise. My kid, she murmured. My baby? I'm okay, Noah said, a lie and not. His cheek throbbed in the center of his head, and his stomach fizzed with cold. But his uncle had pulled gravity to his side. He was still standing. Ms. Walker put herself between Trent and the officers with a satisfying snap of posture. My son is a good kid, she announced to the park as if it were a jury. He was defending himself. That man, her finger jabbed in Andre's direction, attacked him. Gasps. Phones tilted toward sound. The dog chose that moment to shake, tags clattering like frantic applause. Ma'am, Officer Liao said, please lower your voice. He's a police captain, Mr. Diaz said, outraged. He de-escalated your boy's temper tantrum. Don't talk to my child like, Ms. Walker began, but Trent cut in, desperate and reckless. He grabbed me first, he yelled, pointing at Noah. He grabbed my shirt. After you threw his art in the water, Ms. Rourke repeated, bureaucratic and cold. Andre shifted closer to Officer Liao. Separate statements, he said again, softer now, a suggestion dressed as a standard. Let's give everyone space. They did. Officer Ruiz took Trent and Ms. Walker by the swings, where toddlers gaped at something they'd forget. Officer Liao shepherded Noah and Maya to the picnic tables. Mr. Diaz collected phones onto a contact sheet like a teacher assigning numbers to projects. Someone produced ice, some well-meaning stranger who wanted to help but not too much. Andre sat with Liao on the bench by the fence. The iron was warm on his forearms. I controlled him to the ground with minimal force, he said, hearing the words as if reading them already in triplicate. I maintained open hands. He attempted to strike me. I used joint control to redirect. No strikes, no restraints. Did you identify yourself as law enforcement? Liao asked, pen hovering. I told him I was off duty, Andre said. But I'd have stepped in if I weren't. Liao nodded, pen scratching, and then stopped, looking up. He swung at you, she repeated quietly, not quite a question. He's 16, Andre said, and he learned somewhere that swinging might make him powerful. He rubbed a thumb over the ridge of the fence. I don't want his life to be only the worst thing he's ever done. Captain, Liao said gently, that's not your call alone. I know. Andre stared at the court. The whistle lay tangled in net, forgotten. But I'll show up where I can. Noah watched them, ice pressed to his cheek, the ache now a steady drum. Aunt Maya kept a hand on his back like an anchor. Breathe, she whispered into his curls. In 4, out 6. Noah shook his head, a tiny motion. He said it was his park. Maya's mouth tightened. People say all kinds of things when they're afraid of sharing. Noah pictured the fence on his page dissolving into rain. He thought, maybe he should have drawn people after all. Fences don't bleed. They just tell you where someone once decided to stop. A new car slid in at the curb with the sleek entitlement of money. A man in a navy blazer stepped out, sunglasses boxy, tie knotted like a fist. Daniel Walker, a local developer with a smile and a lot of billboards, crossed the grass, chewing the air like it had wronged him. Trent, he called. Are you hurt? Who touched you? His eyes landed on Andre, then on Liao's notebook, and sharpened. Captain Coleman, he said in a tone that managed both false cordiality and threat. We've met. Andre nodded once. Ribbon cuttings, charity drives, invitations he declined. Mr. Walker, you laid hands on my son. I prevented your son from injuring mine, Andre said, voice level, and himself. Mr. Walker looked around, calculating cameras, faces, weather patterns. He smiled, showing expensive molars. We'll be filing a complaint, he announced to the phones, and pressing charges. Against whom? Mr. Diaz asked. Gravity? You think this is a circus? Maya said suddenly, her voice low but vibrating. She stood, eyes like flint. My child was attacked while drawing in a park. You will not perform. Every phone caught that. Even Trent flinched. Mr. Walker's smile thinned. He turned it back toward Andre. Internal affairs will love this, he said conversationally, as if about golf. You off duty, no badge, hands and a minor. I'll file my report, Andre said. And the videos will show what they show. Which can be edited, Mr. Walker murmured, silk over wire. Which have 40 angles, Ms. Rourke shot back. Sirens faded. The park exhaled, but didn't relax. The wind made the leaves hiss like someone shushing a crowd. Liao cleared her throat. We have enough for statements today, she said. We'll forward to the Juvenile unit. Both parties will be contacted. Both? Ms. Walker scoffed. You're contacting us? That's how it works, Liao said, sympathy tucked behind procedure. The cluster began to loosen, people trickling back to lives they'd step into like shoes. Mr. Diaz returned Noah's damp sketchbook like a flag after a battle. The fence on the page was a smear of grief. Maya tapped Andre's knee as he stood. You did right, she said. Doing right is expensive, Andre said, but he smiled at her. A private sibling smile from a childhood of rationed cookies and shared blankets. He looked at Noah. We'll stop by the station. I want you to see the room where reports become real. Sometimes that helps. Helps what? Noah asked. Helps you remember that what happened to you becomes words, Andre said. And words can be weighed. Noah nodded, not sure he believed it. He gathered his things. As they walked toward the car, he glanced back. Trent stood by his father, profile turned to stone. For a second their eyes caught the smallest bridge across a river neither of them chose. Then the moment snapped. The fence glinted. Andre's hand hovered above Noah's shoulder, not touching, a shelter that respected the storm. The station's lobby always smelled faintly of lemon cleaner, and an undernote of something lived in old paper, old coffee, the weight of 1,000 conversations that had ended in either relief or rage. Noah sat on a hard chair, and watched an officer staple forms with a rhythm that felt like time. "This is the part nobody sees in the clips," Andre said, sliding a styrofoam cup of water across to him. "The quiet after." A clerk called them. Ms. Patel, bracelets whispering at her wrist, led them to a small interview room, painted a color that wanted to be calm and almost made it. She turned on a little recorder and nodded at Andrew Policy, and then at Noah. "You can tell it like a story," she said gently. "We'll stop if you need." Noah touched the side of his face. The ache had settled into something dull, the way pain gets bored if you ignore it long enough. He opened his mouth. The first sentences stuck. Andre leaned back, feet flat, eyes soft. "Start with the drawing," he said. "Tell the room that you had a plan for the day." So Noah did. He talked about the fence, about perspective, about the way the grass looked like it wanted to be a sea. He talked about the boys and how their laughter sounded like keys. He said the words shove and grabbed and punched, and heard them land without the sharp edges they'd had when they were happening. He told the truth and felt the truth telling him back. You survived. Miss Patel's pen moved like a metronome. When he faltered, she waited. When his voice shook, she didn't flinch. This was a kind of art, too. Noah thought, taking something messy and making it legible. They were nearly done when a knock came at the door, 2 measured taps, and Sergeant Shue stepped in with a folder. Her face was unreadable in the way of supervisors who had learned that language could be used against you. "Captain," she said. "A minute?" Andre glanced at Noah. "You okay if I step out?" Noah nodded. Maya squeezed his knee. "We'll be right here." In the hallway, Shue handed over the folder. Inside, printed emails. A complaint already filed, language sharp and bloodless. Mr. Walker knew his way around pressure points. "An EA," Shue said quietly. "They'll need your statement, obviously. There were strong words in the complaint about aggression and excessive force against a minor." Andre kept his face where he'd put it in the park, still water with something moving under the surface. "There's 30 videos," he said. "I know." Shue's mouth tugged the smallest fraction, sympathy and fatigue. "And there's also politics." "I didn't strike him." "I know," she repeated. "But you know the dance. The optics want a partner." She lowered her voice. "Off the record? You handled it the way we trained to handle it. On the record? Write it clean. Assume a stranger who hates you will read it." "I always do," Andre said. He closed the folder. "How's the boy?" "Shaken. Quiet. Brave," Shue said, meaning Noah. She'd seen him in the lobby, a kid trying to fold himself into a chair, failing the way kids do. "We'll connect him with a victim advocate." "Good," Andre said. "And the other boy?" Shue hesitated. "Defensive. His father's in the waiting area with a lawyer already. They're laying track for self-defense." Andre thought of Trent's swing wild, furious, stupid. He thought of the earlier pushes, of a sketchbook in water, of the 1,000 million lines that crisscross moments like that, some of them drawn decades before the boys were born. "He needs consequences," he said, "and also a path out." "Sometimes those are the same thing," Shue said. "Sometimes not." Back in the interview room, Ms. Patel was wrapping up with Noah. "One last thing," she said, voice feather-light. "How do you feel right now?" Noah blinked at the question like it was a trick. He looked at his bruised reflection in the metal window frame, and then at his aunt and uncle. "Like I want my drawing back and it's gone," he said finally. "Like if I draw a new fence, it'll never look like the old one. Like people are watching me and I don't know what they want me to be." Miss Patel didn't say it would be okay. She wrote, "Wants drawing back, feels watched." Then she looked at Andre. "We'll be in touch regarding court," she said. "Juvenile timeline is quick. Thank you," Maya said. Her voice had sand in it now, scraped raw by worry and steadied by relief. They stepped into the hallway and into Mr. Walker's smile. Beside him stood a man with a briefcase that looked more expensive than Andre's first car. Attorney Blake Sumner, hair perfect, handshake unnecessary. Trent lurked behind them, eyes bouncing between the tiles and Andre's face. "Captain," Sumner said smoothly. An unfortunate misunderstanding. Assault is a misunderstanding now? Maya asked, shock edged with heat. Sumner's smile didn't change. Boys scuffle. They learn. We're willing to put this behind us, provided your nephew retracts his wild accusation that Trent initiated the altercation. Maya stepped forward. Andre lifted a hand, not to stop her, never that, but to remind her he could stand where she didn't have to. He faced Sumner. We're not bargaining reality, he said. Your client pushed, taunted, and threw a personal belonging. Then he struck. My nephew acted in fear. I intervened to prevent further harm. And put your hands on a minor, Sumner said, the phrase gleaming as if he'd polished it. Off duty. Which I will answer for, Andre said. Because accountability isn't a costume you take off with your uniform. Trent looked up then, a tiny flick of his eyes that found Andre's, and for an instant the boy looked like a child caught in an adult's theater, a kid who'd never been taught how to name the hot shame that comes after a bad decision, when the first audience is yourself. Mr. Walker's jaw worked. We're not dropping this. Neither are we, Maya said. Gentlemen, Sumner interposed, the politeness a knife. We'll see you in juvenile court. Until then, I recommend Captain Coleman refrain from contacting my client in any capacity. I have no desire to, Andre said, and the part of him that would always be a beat cop added silently, except to keep him from hurting someone. They parted like tectonic plates, tension stored as future earthquakes. Outside, the afternoon had slid toward evening, the light mellowing to a softer gold that made even the parking lot look kinder. Noah's hand found the strap of his backpack and squeezed. Can we go to the art store? He asked quietly. I want another book. Maya's face broke open with a kind of tender pride. Yes, she said. We'll get 3. Andre unlocked the car and paused, one arm on the roof. Noah, he said, tomorrow I'm coaching the youth clinic at the community center. Not police, just ball and being alive together. You can come if you want. Or not if you don't. Choice is its own kind of healing. Noah looked at him. Will there be offense? Andre smiled, small, just lines on the floor. We get to decide what they mean. As they drove away, the station receded in the rear view like a building that could be anything. A hospital, a courthouse, a school. Inside it, papers settled into folders. Words took positions like chess pieces. A video finished uploading. In a house not far away, Trent sat on the edge of his bed and stared at his hands as if they belonged to someone else. In the park, the puddle that had swallowed Noah's drawing dried to a dull, chalky map. The fence stood. The wind combed the oak. The story already was heavier than any of them wanted. But it was moving. It would not stop at the station. The gym smelled like dust and new rubber. 1,000 layups baked into the floor. Noon sunlight striped the court through high windows, turning the scuffed varnish into a patchwork of gold. Andre palmed a ball and bounced it once. The sound cracked like a starter pistol. Form first, he told the semicircle of kids, what he always said. You don't win games from the 3-point line. You win them with the little things no one applauds. Noah stood at the edge in a loner pair of sneakers that felt like he was borrowing someone's life. He didn't know if he wanted to be here. He only knew he didn't want to be at home listening to silence and the clock pretending not to stare at him. Index finger to the seam, Andre said, demonstrating. Elbow under the ball, knees soft, nothing forced. He looked up, found Noah, didn't push. Stations, 5 minutes each. Dribble wrap, chest pass, layups, free throws, footwork. The kids scattered. Parents crowded the bleachers, their conversations a susurrus that rose and fell like the ocean. Maya sat near mid-court, scrubs swapped for jeans, the relief of a day without patience etched lightly into her mouth. She caught Noah's gaze and lifted a water bottle like a toast to trying again. Noah rotated through stations like he was learning a dance he didn't pick. At the footwork cones he stumbled, his body forgetting how to trust itself. At layups he bricked 2 in a row, and then one dropped, soft off the glass, and a tiny knot in his chest loosened. The ball didn't hate him. The rim didn't know his name. Two boys whispered at the free throw line and looked at Noah, then looked away fast, guilty as toddlers. Noah swallowed. He knew that look. It said, "I saw the video." It said, "I have thoughts." It said, "I'm 13, and my opinions wear other people's shoes." He missed his next shot. The ball bounced hard and skittered toward the sideline, where a man in a polo bet to stop it with a shoe so clean it squeaked. "Heads up," the man called, sharp and cheerful. Noah looked up into the narrow smile of Principal Everett, not his middle school principal, but the high school's, the one on glossy brochures with the words "Excellence Lives Here," printed across rows of kids in different colored shirts. "Afternoon, Captain," Everett said, pitching his voice to travel. "Thought I'd drop by. Heard great things." "Welcome," Andre said easily, not missing the way two parents straightened when Everett said Captain in public. "Grab a seat." Everett did, crossing one leg over the other with a precision that made the bleachers look like they were failing him. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, and addressed no one in particular. "Tough week," he said, and the words landed like a pebble in a pond, small but centered. Noah focused on the ball. Bounce, catch, elbow under. He could feel people measuring his posture. He told his shoulders to stop telling stories he didn't consent to. Between stations, Andre drifted the way good coaches do, trailing teaching in a wake. Offhand, gentle, like a guide on a crowded bus, he told the boy who kept palming the ball. Land like you're hearing a secret, he told a girl whose layups clanged. When he reached Noah, he didn't offer a correction. He offered a breath. In 4, he murmured, out 6. Noah exhaled through his nose. The ball hit the square and rolled in. Break time. Bodies collapsed into heaps of laughter and pretzels. The gym door thumped and Officer Leo slipped in, uniform crisp even off duty. She lifted a hand to Andre, then to Maya. "Everything okay?" Andre asked. "EEA interview moved up," Leo said, soft enough that only he heard. "Tomorrow morning. They want your full statement, plus any comms with the family afterward." Andre nodded. "Routine, not routine. Thanks. And Captain?" Liao hesitated. "The walkers have been active? On the phones?" Andre guessed. "And at the station," she said. "Mr. Walker mentioned donors and oversight boards." "Of course he did," Andre said. He rubbed a thumb over the ball's leather. "He's not my audience." "Who is?" Liao asked. Andre's eyes cut to Noah, who was watching a kid demonstrate a Euro step like a magician doing a trick you can't unsee even when you know the thread. "Him," he said. "And everyone else who has to believe a grown man won't let them get hurt." Liao followed his gaze, then nodded. "I'll be there," she said. "If you want a familiar face in the hallway." "I do," he said, and something kicked under his ribs gratitude, or the fear that grows roots when it finds it's named. On the bleachers, Maya's phone buzzed. Group chat. Parents of Ridgeview. The screen filled with a braid of messages, outrage, sympathy, poison couched as concern. She watched the words march, praying for everyone involved, saw the video. "That boy needs consequences." "Which boy? Don't make this racial." "It is racial. Can we please talk about supervision in the park?" Captain Coleman put a child on the ground. "That child is taller than I am. Taller doesn't mean older. This is exactly why my husband installed a fence." Maya's jaw worked. She typed, deleted. Typed again, deleted. She put the phone face down like it could be disciplined. During scrimmage, Noah forgot himself for almost 3 minutes. He made a steal, his feet remembering a path his brain didn't authorize. He pushed the ball ahead and dished it left, just as a defender collapsed. The layup swished and everyone's laughter turned to a sound that was almost applause. He grinned. The grin surprised him. At the far end, a man in a suit, tie loosened, leaned against the wall like he owned it. Daniel Walker. No son. No wife. Just a smile that paid for the suit. He gave Andre 2 fingers of a salute that wasn't a salute at all and drifted back out the door. Andre pretended not to see. Pretending felt like refusing a dare. After practice, the kids swarmed the ball rack and the trash can in their parents' pockets. Andre blew one long whistle that wasn't a whistle, just air through his teeth. "Huddle," he said. They ringed him, sweaty and electric. "Listen," he said, looking at faces that were a map of the city, so many ways to be a kid and still exactly a kid. Sometimes life trips you, and you don't fall until the cameras are rolling. When that happens, here's what you do. You tell the truth when it's your turn. You ask for help when it's not. You don't make yourself smaller to fit anyone else's fear. A hand shot up. "Coach," the girl with the soft layup said. "What if you're afraid?" "Then you're awake," Andre said. "Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's what you do in its presence." Noah felt the words settle in him like weights, heavy in a way that made him stronger. On the walk to the car, he and Maya flanked Andre like a security detail. Outside, the day had turned thin and bright, the kind of blue that looks brittle if you stare too hard. Across the street, a local blogger with a camera hovered, angling for a comment. Andre didn't break stride. "No statements," he said, polite but iron. In the parking lot, a note tucked under the windshield wiper lifted in the breeze like a trapped moth. Maya plucked it. "Watch your step," block letters wrote. No signature, no imagination. She passed it to Andre without a word. He folded it in thirds and slid it into his pocket like it was a receipt he'd submit to someone later. They drove to a taqueria where the tortillas were made by hand, and the salsa didn't apologize. They ate without talking much, the hum of other people's Sunday stories filling the space. On the way out, a woman touched Maya's elbow and whispered, "I'm sorry. For your boy." Her eyes were wet with something that could have been sorrow or recognition or both. At home, Noah sat at the kitchen table with a fresh sketchbook. He drew a line. He paused. He drew another. The French rose on the page, but different this time, less a border, more a melody. He drew a figure at mid-fence, one hand on the bar, one leg lifted, a body deciding. His phone buzzed. "Unknown number. You think you're special 'cause a cop uncle jumped in?" The words tasted like metal even through glass. He didn't show Maya. He didn't show Andre. He closed the message and set the phone face down beside the page, two rectangles that could be doors or walls, depending on how you held them. He drew another line. He let the pencil move until the paper became quieter than his heart. Down the hall, Andre drafted his EA statement. He wrote it like he'd told Shu he would, for a stranger who might hate him. He described the grass and the angle of a boy's shoulders and the temperature of a decision. He wrote, "I intervened because a child was in danger." He wrote, "I used the least force necessary." He wrote, "I did not strike, choke, or restrain." He wrote, "I identified myself." He wrote, "I am accountable for every choice I made." He paused. He added one more line, not for Ia, but for himself. "I would do it again." He saved. He exhaled a prayer that didn't ask for anything except clarity. In the living room, the news murmured a panel with teeth arguing over a 30-second clip of a 30-minute moment. Andre muted them. Silence felt more honest. The sun slipped. The house shifted into evening. Tomorrow would bring EA and a hallway with too many chairs and a clock that refused to move. Tomorrow would bring school for Noah and the knowledge that his name had touched mouths that didn't deserve it. Tonight there were lines on a page and air in his lungs and the scrape of a pencil insisting the world could still be drawn into something that didn't hurt. The middle school's front doors yawned like a test. Moms in athleisure and dads with coffees executed the drop-off ballet. Noah stood by the car and watched kids funnel in under banners that said "Be kind" in letters so cheerful they felt like a dare. "You want me to walk you in?" Maya asked, the question light, the answer heavy. "No," Noah said, then softened it. "I'm okay." "You don't have to be," she said. He squared his backpack. "I know." He stepped into the stream. Conversations eddied around him, faces turning away. A boy he'd traded Pokemon cards with in third grade raised his eyebrows like a secret handshake, and then got swept past by his own friends. A girl 2 lockers down said, "Hey," in a tone so neutral it was almost brave. In homeroom, Miss Keating took attendance like she was collecting confessions. When she got to Noah Adegjimi, her eyes flicked up and softened. "Here," Noah said, voice steady. "Class," Miss Keating said, lips pursed. "We're going to start with silent reading for 10 minutes. She wasn't fooling anyone. Silent reading was an umbrella. She was holding it up until the rain passed. It didn't. At minute 6, someone's phone buzzed and then another, and the hum lifted like cicadas at dusk. Miss Keating said, "Phones away," and the phones obeyed, but the buzzing had become a presence even without sound. In the hallway during passing period, a boy Noah didn't know shoulder-checked him. Not hard, hard enough. "Watch it," Noah said, not apologizing. "Watch you," the boy said, and grinned like he'd aced a joke. At lunch, Noah found the quiet table by the vending machine and opened his sketchbook. The hum of the cafeteria faded when he drew. He could feel the edges of things again. He sketched a basketball hoop bending like a willow. He sketched sneakers with wings. He sketched a jawline he didn't recognize, and then did. Dude, Malik, who played trumpet in band and never turned in math homework on time, dropped a carton of chocolate milk and slid into the seat across from him. "You good?" "I'm fine," Noah said. "That's not what your face says." Noah touched his cheekbone. The purple had walked to yellow at the edges. "I'm more fine than Friday." Malik nodded like that was math. "People are saying stuff," he warned, "like you started it. Like, your uncle." "He's my uncle," Noah said, because that piece always got caught in people's teeth. "Yeah," Malik said. "People don't know where to put that information in their brains. They think cops are all one thing. They think kids are all another. You're messing with their filing system." Noah huffed what might have been a laugh. "I didn't mean to." "Good," Malik said. "Shake the drawer." A shadow fell over the table. Assistant Principal Reinhardt, a man whose tie knots were excuses for lectures, cleared his throat. "Noah," he said, "the counselor would like to see you." The counselor's office smelled like tea. Miss Barlow sat forward with a posture that said, "I am present." "I'm glad you came," she said. "How are you holding up?" Noah looked at her diplomas, the poster of a mountain that said the only way out is through. "I'm here," he offered. "Sometimes that's a victory," Miss Barlow said. "Do you want to talk about what happened?" "Everybody already is," Noah said. "I'm tired," she nodded. "Would it help to have somewhere that's yours to be tired in?" She slid a laminated pass across the desk. "Any period. If it's too much, you can come sit in the art room. Mr. Ellis knows. No questions." An unexpected sting hit Noah's eyes. "Thanks," he said thickly. "And Noah?" Miss Barlow lowered her voice. "The high school is having community meetings. People have opinions. If anyone approaches you online, block and report. Let me know. We can loop in the SRO." "I'm not a snitch," Noah said automatically, then flushed. "Sorry." "Language is a map of where we've been," Miss Barlow said gently. "Not a prophecy. Keeping yourself safe isn't snitching." He pocketed the pass. As he left, she added, "I saw your drawing. The fence. It made me feel like I could breathe." Noah didn't know what to do with that sentence, so he carried it like a lucky coin. After school, the house felt like a mouth holding its breath. Maya had left a note. "Clinic until 7. Leftover jollof. Love you." Noah ate in front of the sketchbook like the paper could watch him too. At 4, Andre texted, "I had done in the morning. You good to come by after? We can grab Suya." Noah typed yes and then deleted and typed yeah and then deleted it and typed and sent it like he meant it. At 8 on the next day, Andre sat in a room with frosted glass and a tape recorder that clicked like a metronome for anxiety. Across the table, Investigator Ramos arranged files into towers. "This is standard," Ramos said, which was true and also not. Andre told the story the way he'd written it, the way he'd lived it. He spoke in sentences that walked on their heels, balanced and careful. He didn't leave out the moment he put his hand on a 16-year-old's wrist. He didn't leave out the split second where he calculated the cost of not acting against the cost of becoming another clip. Ramos listened. Wrote. Asked. Did you fear for your nephew's life? Yes, Andre said, and then because accountability is an ecosystem, and also for the other boys. Rage is a kind of drowning. People flail. They grab what's closest. Ramos made a small, almost invisible face at the word rage, as if it smelled like politics. Off-duty interventions are discouraged, he said, reading from the manual without naming it. When possible, Andre agreed. This wasn't. Ramos capped his pen. We'll review the footage and statements. You'll be notified. Of, Andre said, even though he knew. Administrative assignment, Ramos said. Pending conclusion. By afternoon, an email waited in Andre's inbox with a subject line that made his throat dry. Temporary administrative. Leave, Captain A. Coleman. The body was bureaucracy's neat cruelty. Effective immediately. You are placed on paid administrative leave, pending the outcome of the investigation. You are not to perform law enforcement duties or represent the department in any capacity. You are to surrender your badge and firearm to property by 1700 hours. Andre sat very still and looked at the words until they were only shapes. He'd put men on leave. He'd said this is not a judgment, only a process, and watched it land like a sentence anyway. He breathed. In 4, out 6. He stood. He took off the badge that had hung against his heart, so long the skin there knew its weight. He placed it in a tray that had held too many stories. The property clerk slid him a form to sign without looking at his face. On the way home, he stopped at a red light that refused to change, and when it finally did, a cyclist almost clipped his bumper and flipped him a middle finger without looking back. The world went on being itself, indifferent and miraculous. At home, he told Maya. She shut her eyes for 1 second grief as a timer. You get what you get, and then nodded once. We knew this was a possibility, she said. We did, he said. It's not a verdict, she said. It isn't, he said, and discovered that sometimes truths need rehearsal. Noah came home and found the badge-shaped absence on the counter. He touched the indentation it had left, a shadow in metal. He looked at his uncle, at the way Andre's shoulders rolled back to carry something heavier and invisible. Is this because of me? He asked, not blinking. Andre stepped close and put his hands on Noah's shoulders. No, he said, steady and certain. This is because I'm a man in a system that says it wants people like me to step in until I do, and then it wants paperwork. Paperwork is not punishment. It's the toll. Noah nodded, jaw tight. I hate tolls. So do I, Andre said, but bridges beat rivers. That night, the school district sent an email about recent events and our commitment to safety. The comments section of the local paper published a story with the headline, Developer's Son in Park Altercation with Police Captain's Nephew, and the subhead questions raised about off-duty use of force. The article quoted Mr. Walker and no one else. It did not mention the sketchbook. It did not mention the shove. At 11, Noah's phone lit up. Unknown. Tomorrow. After school. Park. Talk or you're scared. The number was new. The tone was ancient. He didn't respond. He took a photo of the message and sent it to Andre with no text. Andre replied immediately. Thank you. Do not go. We'll handle this. The words were a wall and a door. Noah lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. He imagined the fence on his page opening like a hinge. He imagined walking through. He imagined staying put. He fell asleep without choosing and woke into a morning that didn't care. Juvenile court was painted the color of waiting. Families pressed into benches like the wood could hold their shakes. A sign on the door said closed proceeding in letters that thought capitalizing would make them more merciful. The Walkers arrived with Attorney Sumner in a triangle that parted the hallway. Catherine's sunglasses were a wall. Daniel's smile was a weapon. Trent wore a suit that fit like a dare. He looked at Noah once and then looked at the floor, as if the tile had offered him a contract. Maya put her palm on Noah's back. Andre stood to the side, hands empty, leave letter folded in his pocket, like a reprimand that hadn't decided its temperature yet. Officer Liao leaned against the wall, off-duty but present, a quiet gravity well. The bailiff called the case. In Re-TW, the initials tried to make Trent smaller. He fit inside them the way a fist fits inside a glove. They filed in. The courtroom had no jury, just a judge with eyes that had learned to hold the whole story at once. Judge Priya Anand read the file in front of her like she was scanning for a heartbeat. "We are here on a petition alleging misdemeanor battery," she said. "Counsel ready?" Sumner stood, every button on his jacket a point of order. "Ready, Your Honor. My client maintains he was defending himself from an unprovoked attack." The prosecutor, Ms. Hernandez, rose. "Ready, Your Honor. We have witness statements and multiple videos demonstrating the respondent initiated contact and escalated." Judge Anand nodded. "I have reviewed the footage." She looked at Trent. "Mr. W., this is not a trial. This is an adjudicatory hearing. Your rights are different here, but your choices are not without consequence. Do you understand?" Trent's voice was small and full of tiny knives. "Yes." Miss Hernandez presented the arc in pieces. Miss Rourke's statement, Mr. Diaz's phone angle, a clip from someone who caught the shove, and the toss of the sketchbook. The moment the punch landed. The moment Andre's hand closed around a wrist with the care of a mechanic handling glass. The screen's light washed everyone the same color. Sumner objected strategically, enough to leave footprints. Out of context. Hearsay within hearsay. The captain's presence intimidated my client. Judge Anand overruled or sustained in a rhythm that said she'd waltzed this dance before. When the videos ended, she folded her hands. "I do not see a mystery," she said. "I see a child weaponizing his size and the assumption that no one would call it what it was." Catherine flinched. Daniel's jaw ticked. Sumner's pen clicked like a metronome in a nervous song. "And," the judge continued, "I see an off-duty officer intervene with technique rather than force. That part is not before me. Internal affairs will handle its own, but in this courtroom we name what we see." She turned to Noah. "Would you like to speak?" Noah's throat tried to close like a fist. He looked at Maya. Maya's eyes were wet and steady. He stood. "I was drawing," he said, and was ashamed to hear the apology in the sentence. He straightened his shoulders and tried again. "I was drawing. He told me to move. He shoved me. He threw my sketchbook in the water. I grabbed his shirt because I wanted my book back, not because I wanted to fight." He swallowed. "He hit me. Twice." "Thank you," Judge Anand said, and the thank you landed like respect, not pity. She turned to Trent. "Would you like to speak?" Sumner half rose. "We decline, Your Honor." Trent looked at his lawyer. He looked at his father. He looked at his shoes. He started, and Daniel's hand tightened on the bench like a commandment. Trent's mouth closed. Judge Anand watched the choreography. "Here are the court's options," she said. "We can proceed to disposition on the misdemeanor petition. We can divert to restorative justice, if the victim agrees. We can place you on formal probation. We can impose community service and counseling. None of those choices erase the harm. Some of them allow you to learn to name it." Sumner stood. "Your Honor, my client is the victim of a public narrative driven by a powerful family." "Sit down, Mr. Sumner," Judge Anand said, not unkindly. "I'm not a panel show." She looked at Noah. "Mr. Adeyemi, restorative justice is not forgiveness theater. It is not required. It is a process that centers you. If you choose it, the court will require the respondent's accountability, a full admission of harm, a plan for repair, and consequences if he fails. If you choose not to, this case proceeds and I decide. Do you understand?" Noah thought of the fence on his page and the hinge he'd drawn. A door. A wall. He thought of Trent's face in the hallway, the flicker before the lawyer's hand tightened the leash. He thought of how tired he was of other people choosing the shape of his days. He looked at Andre. Andre's face said, "I will stand wherever you need the ground to be." He looked at Maya. Maya's face said, "Your safety is not negotiable." Noah turned back to the judge. "I want to hear him say what he did," he said, voice small and steel. "I want him to look at me, and I want my sketchbook paid for, and my face hurts when I sleep on it." A corner of Judge Annen's mouth moved, something like grief laughing at itself. "Restorative referral granted," she said. "Conditions as follows. Respondent will participate in a restorative conference, facilitated by the County Justice Center within 14 days. He will admit harm in full and agree to a repair plan that includes apologies, replacement of property, medical expenses for the victim's care, and 100 hours of community service at the community center identified by the victim. He will attend anger management counseling. A stay-away order remains in effect outside the facilitated process. Failure to comply returns this case to the docket for disposition." Sumner opened his mouth. Daniel touched his sleeve, calculating vectors that led to worse outcomes. "We request supervised contact only during the conference," Sumner said instead. "Granted," Judge Annen said. She looked at Trent until he couldn't help but raise his eyes. "You are 16, she said, "which means 2 timelines are fighting inside you. The one where you get to be a child a little longer, and the one where the world will punish you like a man. Choose with care." She banged the gavel, soft. It still sounded loud. In the hallway afterward, Catherine hissed, "We're not parading our son through some public shaming." "It's not public," Sumner said, weary. "It's the cheapest way out." Daniel glanced at Andre with a smile that had lost a tooth. "Enjoy your leave, Captain," he said, as if he'd gifted it. Andre didn't answer. He was looking at Trent. For half a heartbeat, the boy's face dropped its adult armor, and something raw peered out, a scared animal in a cage built from the wrong hands. 14 days, Maya said to Noah as they walked toward air. "You don't owe him anything more than you're willing to give." "I know," Noah said. He touched his cheek and thought he could feel the bruise thinking too. They met in a room that pretended to be a living room. Soft chairs, bad coffee, a bowl of mints, a rug patterned with squares like a game you hop across. On one wall, a whiteboard with 3 words written in dry erase: harm, impact, repair. Felicia Alvarez, the facilitator, wore a cardigan and competence. She greeted each person by name like she'd practiced until the syllables were easy. "We are here because a harm occurred," she said when everyone sat. "We are here to say what we need to say so we can leave with a plan. This is not a debate. This is not a court. We tell the truth. We listen. We make a map." She looked around the circle. Noah and Maya. Trent and the Walkers. Andre allowed to attend only as Noah's support. Liao there because the stay-away order made everyone nervous. Miss Patel from the Victim Advocate Office. Mr. Diaz, who'd insisted on coming because he'd watched and not moved, and that wouldn't sit right in his bones. "Ground rules," Felicia said, and wrote them as she spoke. "Speak from the eye, no interruptions. No name-calling. If we need a break, we take it." She turned to Trent. "We start with the person who caused harm," she said, and watched the word land. "Mr. W., in your words, what happened?" Silence. You could hear the room test itself. Trent's jaw worked. He tried to find the version he'd been fed. He tried to find his own. He looked at his father, at his mother. Catherine had placed her hand on his knee like a trap and a lifeline. Daniel stared at the tabletop, a muscle in his cheek counting seconds. Sumner sat behind them, allowed in the room only to observe, face neutral. Trent inhaled. "I told him to move," he said, and his voice surprised him by sounding like a kid's. "I shoved him. I took his notebook and threw it. He grabbed my shirt. I hit him. Twice." His eyes flickered to Andre, and then away. Then Captain Coleman stopped me. Felicia nodded, wrote, shoved, threw, hit, stopped. "Thank you," she said. "No justifications yet. No excuses. We'll get to why. For now, the bones." She turned to Noah. "Mr. Adeyemi Noah, what was the impact on you?" Noah swallowed. His tongue felt too big. "I was scared," he said. "I felt small. I felt like I wasn't allowed to be somewhere everyone says is public. My face hurt. I can't sleep on my right side without it hurting. My sketchbook was ruined, and I can't get that drawing back. People at school talk to me like I did something wrong just by being there. I feel watched, a lot. Felicia wrote, fear, pain, loss, public space. Watched. She looked at Maya. My son is not a test, Maya said, voice low. He is not a stage for anyone else's lesson. He is a boy who went to draw a fence and met one instead. Felicia wrote not a test and underlined it. She turned to Andre. I am a man who has worn a badge for 25 years, Andre said. I am also a black man in America and a black uncle to a black child. Those facts don't take turns. I am on leave because I chose to keep a child from harm. That's the procedural impact. The human impact is simpler. I watched a boy learn that someone bigger thought he was disposable. Felicia wrote, leave, intersection, disposal. She turned to Mr. Diaz. I teach math, he said. Numbers are honest unless you fudge them. I watched a boy push another boy, and I didn't cross the court right away. That's on me. I'm here because I want to be counted on differently next time. Felicia wrote, bystander responsibility. She turned to Trent again. What was the impact on you? Trent's throat bobbed. He looked at Catherine. At Daniel. Something in him chose the hinge. I felt powerful, he said, and Catherine flinched like he'd hit her. Until I didn't, I felt seen. Not in a good way. I felt like I was the worst thing I've ever done. I wanted it to be someone else's fault. It wasn't. Felicia wrote, power, exposure, shame, ownership. She capped the marker. Now we ask why, she said. And then we talk repair. The why was a tangle. Trent spoke about a summer league where the older kids told him he had to own his space or lose it. He spoke about a father whose love sounded like metrics. He spoke about a house where fences were decorative, but rules were weapons. He said the word angry once and then he pressed his fingers to his eyes like he was holding his face on. Daniel shifted, impulse coiling. He opened his mouth to put the narrative back the way he wanted it, and Felicia raised a palm without looking at him. We'll come to parents, she said, and astonished him into silence. Catherine spoke about fear dressed as control. She cried once. A single sob she swallowed like she was ashamed of its noise. She said, I taught him to stand up for himself, and Felicia wrote stand up and then against whom, in parentheses. Daniel finally spoke, and his voice was tired, which was the first honest thing it had been. I wanted my son to be the kind of person who didn't get pushed around, he said. I confused that with pushing. He looked at Noah. I'm sorry, he said, and the words were true enough to register, even if they weren't the ones that mattered most. Felicia let the air settle. Repair, she said. Here's what I've heard already. Replace the sketchbook. Pay for medical care, 100 hours at the community center, counseling. She looked at Noah. Anything else? Noah looked at his hands. There's a mural wall at the park, he said, surprising himself. It's ugly. It's just gray. I want it painted. I want a fence on it, but one that looks like music, not like a cage. I want him to help. Not because I want to stand next to him, because I want to look at something that came from this that doesn't make my stomach hurt. Felicia wrote, mural, fence as melody. She looked at Trent. Can you commit to that? Trent looked at Daniel. Daniel stared at the tabletop. Trent looked at Catherine. Catherine nodded, a tiny, desperate permission. Trent looked at Noah. Yes, he said. I'll pay for the paint. I'll show up. His voice cracked. I'm sorry, I am. Noah didn't say, I forgive you. He said, I hear you, because that was true, and enough for now. Felicia drafted the agreement on the whiteboard. Each item became a sentence that would become a signature, that would become a thing, that either happened or didn't. We'll meet again in 6 weeks, she said, to see what the map became. As they stood to leave, Trent trailed Noah and Maya into the hallway and stopped a respectful distance away. He looked at Andre like a person looks at a cliff he might try to climb. "Sir," he said, the word both apology and plea, "I'm sorry for making you have to be a cop on your day off." Andre studied him. "I'm sorry you learned to confuse hurting with being strong," he said. "But you don't have to keep that lesson." Trent nodded, swallowed, and went to catch up with his parents, who had peeled off to argue about whether the mural was performative or productive, which was how some people avoided admitting they were just afraid of being seen at all. 6 weeks later, on a Saturday as blue and thin as a vein, the park wall bloomed. Kids from the community center showed up with brushes. Miss Barlow brought cookies. Mr. Diaz set up a table with grid paper and tape and talked perspective to anyone who would listen. Felicia came and stood with her hands in her pockets, smiling at the way repair looked suspiciously like work. Noah sketched the fence first bars that curved like notes. He sketched a hoop and a spritz of water droplets from the splash pad and a dog with laughing ears. He sketched 2 figures, one small, kneeling with a pencil, one tall mid-vault over a fence, body deciding. He did not sketch a punch. He did not sketch a shove. Those lived elsewhere. This was for what came after. Trent rolled a layer of sky, his strokes careful. He didn't speak much. He tapped the roller off on the tray with the concentration of someone learning a new motor skill. How not to ruin something delicate. At noon, Daniel walked up, hands in pockets, and stood stupidly for a long minute. He looked like a man who'd brought the wrong gift to a party he didn't think he'd attend. He cleared his throat. "Need money for more paint?" he asked, and when nobody handed him a roll, he went and bought sandwiches for everyone and didn't tell a soul he had. Andre arrived late in jeans and a t-shirt, no badge. He paused at the edge, taking in the wall. "This looks like breath," he said. Felicia sidled next to him. "Pia?" she asked. "Cleared," he said, the word like a door swinging open on oiled hinges. "Policy review recommends off-duty training refreshers. No discipline." He let the relief sit next to the exhaustion. "I'll take it." "Good," she said. "We need people who still believe the rules exist to protect, not to excuse." Andre watched Noah laugh at something Malik said and felt a muscle unclench in his heart that he hadn't known was clenched. He drifted to the paint table and picked up a brush. By late afternoon, the wall sang. The fence looked like a staff, the sky like a score, the park like a chorus. People stood and stared and didn't pick fights with their own faces. A man walking his dog stopped, pointed, and said to nobody and everyone, "That's beautiful." Noah stepped back, paint on his forearms, sun on his neck. He looked at the figure mid-vault, at the boy kneeling, at the bars that weren't bars anymore, and felt something shift inside him like a door unlocking. He wasn't done being angry. He wasn't done being watched. But he had put a version of the story in a place that didn't lie. Trent came to stand a few feet away. "It looks different than I thought," he said. "Me too," Noah said. They didn't shake hands. They didn't take a selfie. They looked at the wall like it was a lake where they'd thrown their worst stones and waited to see what ripples came back. Maya slid an arm around Noah's shoulders. "You ready to go?" she asked. "In a minute," he said. He wanted to watch the paint dry. He wanted to be sure it stayed. On the way home, they drove past the park fence. Sunlight caught the black bars and made them flash. Andre tapped the steering wheel with 2 fingers, a habit from 1,000 stackouts and a childhood of counting streetlights. "You know what I like about fences?" he said. "What?" Noah asked, amused, because there were so many right answers, and none of them would change the road. "They're honest," Andre said. "They tell you what they're for. Keep in, keep out. Hold up vines. Keep dogs from running into traffic. If you don't like what a fence is doing, you change it. Or you climb it." Noah looked out the window at the wall where a fence had turned into music. "Or you paint it," he said. "Or that," Andre agreed, and the car filled with a quiet that wasn't empty. It was full of lines you could follow. The news would do what it did. The comments would do what they did. People would carry their conclusions like bags they refused to set down, but the wall would be there. The court file would be there. The leave letter would be there, filed and closed. And Noah would be there, drawing in a park that didn't belong to anyone, and did, which is to say, it belonged to those who refused to let it become smaller than the people in it. At home, Noah taped a photo of the mural into the front page of his new sketchbook. On the next page he drew a fence, then a horizon where lines met and decided to keep going. He wrote one sentence at the bottom in small, stubborn letters. We get to decide what the lines mean.